We've just got some breaking news in from Buckingham Palace, folks. So this statement has just come in from Buckingham Palace, and I'll read it for you. It goes on to say, His Majesty has...
I'm 75 now, and there's only one queen I'll ever remember, the Queen Bee. The remark was brief, but inside the palace, the words were said to carry far more weight than anyone expected. Then came the document. It contained only 3 pages. No dramatic speech. No public announcement. No cameras waiting outside the gates. Yet when King Charles lowered his pen and signed the final line, the story claims that the entire balance of power inside the monarchy changed in a single moment. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. Camilla's position was stripped of its authority. Her ceremonial role was suspended, and the title she had spent years defending was reportedly removed from official royal use. But the most surprising part was not the decision itself. It was the group standing behind it. Prince William, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, and several senior advisors who were allegedly no longer willing to remain silent. What began as a private disagreement behind palace walls had reportedly grown into a full-scale rebellion, one that threatened to divide the royal family and reshape the future of the crown. According to the dramatic account, King Charles understood that the people gathered around the table were not there to settle an ordinary family argument. The meeting was held inside Buckingham Palace, the monarch's official London residence. Prince William was present. Princess Anne sat nearby. Prince Edward remained unusually quiet. Constitutional advisors stood beside carefully organized files. At the center of the room was the king. In front of him rested a formal royal document, a legal instrument said to control titles, responsibilities, and official duties within the royal institution. Charles held his pen above the signature line. Across the table, William said nothing. But his silence carried a message. The moment for compromise had passed. For months, concerns had reportedly grown about Camilla's influence over royal appointments, ceremonial arrangements, private correspondence, and access to the king. Some family members allegedly believed that decisions traditionally reserved for the sovereign or the direct heir were being influenced through unofficial channels. The tension reportedly became more serious when questions arose involving Catherine and the future roles of Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. Anne had noticed the same pattern. Edward had initially avoided taking sides. He reportedly believed the conflict could be resolved privately and feared that open disagreement would damage the monarchy. But then several changes appeared in his official schedule. Invitations were delayed. Engagement details were altered. Instructions reportedly arrived through Camilla's office without the usual consultation. That was when Edward began to reconsider. Charles lowered his pen. Then he lifted it again. For several seconds, nobody moved. Finally, the king signed. According to the fictionalized account, the order removed Camilla's authority within the working monarchy and reduced her status to Duchess of Cornwall. The decision ended her influence over certain official offices and ceremonial responsibilities. In one signature, Charles reportedly protected the institution, but caused deep pain inside his own marriage. Camilla received the news in a private sitting room. She read the opening paragraph. Then she read it again. Her hand reportedly tightened around the edge of a chair. After a long silence, she looked toward the aide standing near the door. Was this William's decision? She asked. The aide did not answer. And according to the story, that silence revealed something even more serious. William had not acted alone. Anne and Edward had supported him. Together, they had formed what some palace employees privately described as a family revolt against Camilla's growing influence. Then the evidence file was opened. Inside were revised schedules, delayed letters, cancelled invitations, private instructions. Records allegedly showing decisions being made before Charles had been fully informed. But the removal of the title was only the beginning. The larger mystery was why Charles had finally accepted William's argument. What evidence had changed the king's mind? And which member of the royal family had provided the information that made it impossible for him to continue defending his wife? Music. To understand why a husband would allegedly approve a decision that changed his wife's royal identity, the story must move beyond the document. This was not simply a dispute about titles. It was a conflict built around loyalty, family, authority, and the future of the monarchy. For Charles, the choice was deeply personal. Camilla had stood beside him for decades. Their relationship had survived criticism, public anger, political pressure, and years of scrutiny. She was not simply his wife. She was the person who had supported him through some of the most difficult periods of his life. But William was his son. And William was also the future king. The institution Charles had spent his entire life preparing to lead would one day pass to him. According to the story, Charles now found himself caught between the woman who represented his personal happiness and the son responsible for the monarchy's future. For William, the situation was equally painful. He was not merely challenging Camilla. He was confronting his father. The father he loved. The father he respected. And, according to the story, the father whose judgment he had begun to question. For Camilla, the crisis was different. The title she had spent years trying to secure was suddenly being challenged by people who had never fully accepted her place in the family. After the emergency meeting, Charles reportedly remained alone. The others left the room. Their footsteps faded into the corridor. But the king did not follow. He removed his glasses and looked toward a framed photograph of himself and Camilla. The image had been taken during a happier period. At the time, their ability to remain together had felt like a victory after years of public resistance. Charles reportedly reached toward the photograph. But he could not turn it over. He also could not continue looking at it. His marriage had become the center of his emotional life. Yet Camilla's growing influence inside the palace had reportedly placed that marriage in conflict with his responsibilities as sovereign. A sovereign is the reigning monarch, the person expected to protect the institution even when personal loyalty makes that responsibility painful. And Charles was said to be discovering the harsh reality hidden inside that role. William returned to Kensington Palace without any sense of celebration. Catherine found him standing quietly. The prince was still thinking about the moment his father signed. He reportedly admitted that he felt guilty. The decision could permanently damage Charles's marriage. It could create a wound inside the family that might never fully heal. But William also believed he had protected the future. Catherine's position mattered. The future roles of their children mattered. And the stability surrounding the next generation mattered. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis would one day inherit responsibilities connected to the crown. William believed that unclear boundaries could place that future at risk. The future king had won the argument. But the son inside him felt as though he had caused his father irreversible pain. Camilla reportedly contacted her sister, Annabel, after the palace doors closed. In a private conversation described in the story, she admitted that losing the title was painful. But the rejection from Charles's children hurt even more. Camilla had faced public criticism before. She had endured years of hostility. Yet this was different. This rejection was coming from inside the family she had spent years trying to join. Her voice reportedly weakened as she spoke. She feared that Charles might now see her not as his partner, but as a danger to the monarchy. Anne had allegedly warned her brother about that possibility long before the crisis. The Princess Royal was known for discipline, directness, and loyalty to duty. According to the story, she told Charles that loyalty to a spouse could not come before responsibility to the crown. She forced him to confront concerns that affection may have allowed him to ignore. Edward's decision had also been difficult. He had resisted William's campaign at first. He feared public humiliation. He worried that a family conflict could damage the monarchy's reputation. But after one of his official engagements was altered without consultation, he reportedly realized the disagreement was no longer personal. It had become a struggle over who controlled the monarchy's daily operations. The sides were now clear. The pain was real, but none of them had yet revealed the single event that transformed years of private frustration into organized opposition. The palace had survived disagreements before. It had survived cold silences. It had survived private resentment. But one ceremony reportedly changed everything. And after that night, William no longer believed quiet compromise could solve the problem. The alleged rebellion did not begin during a legal briefing. It did not begin in a council chamber. It began during a formal royal ceremony. A chair was moved, a name disappeared, and a change that appeared minor exposed a much larger struggle for influence. According to the story, one altered seating plan revealed that the royal hierarchy itself was being quietly reshaped. Camilla's office had allegedly expanded its involvement in guest lists, ceremonial arrangements, household appointments, and access to Charles. Ceremonial precedence is the official order that determines where members of the royal family stand, sit, enter, and appear during major events. A small adjustment can appear harmless. But inside a monarchy, it can send a powerful message. William had noticed the pattern. Catherine had noticed it too. But both reportedly chose patience. Public unity mattered. The monarchy could not afford to appear divided. Anne also encouraged restraint. She believed the problem could still be corrected privately. Then came the Commonwealth Service rehearsal at Westminster Abbey. The ceremony brings together representatives from countries connected through the Commonwealth. Every entrance matters. Every seat matters. Every position can carry political meaning. During the rehearsal, Catherine's assigned place was reportedly moved. Instead of standing beside William, she was placed farther back. Members of Camilla's extended circle were positioned ahead of her. Anne's ceremonial entry was also changed. On paper, the adjustments appeared small. But everyone involved understood the possible message. The future queen had been moved aside. The king's sister had been pushed lower in the order. William received the final rehearsal document. He carried it into a private room. For several minutes, he studied every detail. Then he circled the changes in dark ink. He asked for the Lord Chamberlain. The Lord Chamberlain is the senior official responsible for ceremonial organization and important household procedures. When the official entered, William placed the document on the table. "Who approved these changes?" he asked. The official hesitated. His eyes moved toward the closed door. Then he gave an answer. "The Queen's office." Music. Catherine urged William not to react publicly. Her voice remained calm, but according to the story, William recognized the disappointment behind her restraint. Once again, she was being asked to accept an insult to preserve public unity. Her silence made him even more determined. William promised that he would not create a scene inside Westminster Abbey. But he did not promise to forget what had happened. Anne reportedly confronted Camilla after the rehearsal. There were no cameras, no advisors, no staff members standing nearby. Anne placed the revised schedule on a table. Then she told Camilla that a matter of family courtesy had become a matter of constitutional concern. Camilla defended the changes. She described them as an attempt to create ceremonial balance. But a second version of the document reportedly showed that instructions had been issued before Charles was consulted. According to the story, Camilla's office had acted first and informed the king later. That distinction changed everything. William began gathering records. He searched for earlier examples. Edward provided correspondence connected to changes in his own engagements. Anne supplied names, dates, and previous instructions. The documents began forming a pattern. But paperwork alone would not be enough. Charles's emotional loyalty to Camilla remained powerful. If William wanted the king to act, he would have to confront Camilla directly. And he would have to force his father to decide where the boundary should be. What followed was not another carefully written letter. It was a private confrontation where years of resentment finally entered the same room. When William walked into the private drawing room, there were no cameras. No secretaries. No public speeches. Camilla was already waiting near the fireplace. She appeared calm, but she was watching every movement. Charles sat between them. He hoped he could control the conversation. That hope lasted less than a minute. William placed the evidence file on the table. Then he closed the door. He looked directly at Camilla. "Your influence has gone too far," he reportedly said. Charles had arranged the meeting as a final attempt to prevent the conflict from reaching constitutional advisors and the wider royal family. He believed a private agreement might protect both his marriage and the monarchy. William believed the time for private agreements had already passed. The evidence file contained altered schedules, delayed correspondence, changed guest lists, instructions affecting Catherine, Anne, and Edward. William pushed the documents toward Camilla. Then he asked whether she had personally approved the Commonwealth seating changes. He did not shout. He did not need to. The calmness in his voice made the room feel even more tense. Camilla looked at the papers. Then she reportedly replied that someone had to protect the dignity of the Queen. The words changed the atmosphere. The statement was no longer only a defense. It sounded like a claim to authority. William answered that dignity could not be protected by reducing Catherine's position or bypassing the future king. He spoke slowly. But Charles reportedly recognized something final in his son's voice. William was no longer asking for reassurance. He was demanding a boundary. The king looked at his wife. Then he looked at his son. And he realized the disagreement had become a struggle over the future reign. Camilla responded with her own accusation. She claimed that William had been waiting for an opportunity to remove her. She said he had never forgiven her for the pain surrounding Diana. The argument suddenly moved away from official duties and